everyone, welcome to a very special AMA. My name is Kat. I'm from the Binance team, and I am so happy that you're joining us today and spending some time with us to learn about Blockstack. So, today is going to be a very interesting session. We will be learning all about Blockstack and the Stack 2.0 mainnet launch, and how is it bringing apps and smart contracts to Bitcoin. So before we start, let's quickly explain what's going to happen today. So this will be a 60-minute AMA, and we will be giving away $2,500 worth in Stacks tokens, and you will have three ways to win. So the first one, after the introduction with Munib about Blockstack and the main launch, then we will start with the AMA, where we will be selecting the 10 best questions live from the chat. And these winners will be receiving $100 worth of Stack token. So I hope you pay attention and send us your questions. And after that, and this is my favorite part, we will do a Twitter storm with you. So you will share your questions, comments, insights, anything that you learn from this interview. You will share that to the Blockstack's Twitter account. And we will be selecting the 40 best tweets, and the winners will share a pool prize of $1,000 worth of Stack tokens too. So here you will be filling out a form. You will need to make sure to have a Binance account, Binance.com account activated, and share with us your Binance user ID. And the last but not least way to win, we'll be selecting 10 random users that follow Blockstack's Twitter and Telegram accounts, and those who will be receiving $50 worth of Stacks token too. So in total, we will be giving away $2,500 worth of Stacks token collectively, and the winners will be announced on our Binance Telegram account, which is Binance Exchange, and on Friday 20, all the winners will be posted there. So all the links, all this information is on the description below. So please send us your question. If you don't understand anything, we'll be happy to help. So, all right, to answer all your questions, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Munib Ali, co-founder of Blockstack. Everyone, please let's welcome Munib. How are you?
Hey everyone, excited to be here.
We are so happy to have you, and thank you for spending some time with us today. Also with us is Joe and Luis from the Stacks team to help us moderate the chat. So feel free to send us any questions, and they will be taken care of. And along with the Binance Angel Gajender, shout out to Binance Angel. And please keep your comments, questions, everything respectful. Spam messages and inappropriate comments will be deleted immediately. So all right, Munib, are you ready?
Yep. Happy to first give an overview of the Stacks 2.0 mainnet launch.
Cool. So please take it away and give us a brief introduction about yourself, Blockstack, and I'll see you soon.
Sounds good. Let me share my screen.
Yes.
All right. So welcome everyone. I'm Munib, co-founder of Blockstack. My background is mostly in distributed systems. I did a PhD in computer science at Princeton University, and Blockstack was actually my PhD thesis. So today I'm going to tell you about Stacks 2.0, which is our main blockchain design. We've been working on it for years. We're really excited about the upcoming mainnet launch, where this technology would go online. And I will try to keep this presentation more high level, try to basically highlight some of the key things and how we are bringing apps and smart contracts to Bitcoin, which is kind of like the key different thing you would notice with Stacks compared to some other blockchains out there. First of all, real quick, this is not an offering for any tokens or any security. We're not selling anything. This is purely for informational purposes, and there might be some forward-looking statements in this presentation. So at a high level, I know a lot of us are really excited about Web3, this next version of the internet, and there are really two tracks to it. One track is more about the crypto economy, the new types of digital assets, the new types of financial products that people are building. And the second track is about decentralized applications, the alternative to cloud computing, the alternative to kind of like giving all of your data to big companies like Facebook. And the exciting thing is that both these tracks are enabled by the same technology, these crypto networks or blockchains that you might be familiar with. And these two are kind of like the applications on top. And if you take a look at the industry, we are seeing Bitcoin establish itself as digital gold or a form of sovereign money. I know Bitcoin is trading at something like 17,000 today. When I started in the crypto industry back in 2013, I think it was like $90 or something like that. So clearly, we've come a long way in the last years, and Bitcoin has established itself as the best shot to being sovereign money and be digital gold. For applications and smart contracts, obviously there's Ethereum that's kind of like the dominant player, but there are all sorts of new protocols as well that are coming up that tackle some of the scalability challenges or new types of consensus algorithms, and they're trying to bring more types of apps and smart contracts to the crypto industry. And if there's one thing that you need to understand about Stacks, that is that we actually bring apps and smart contracts to Bitcoin. Right? We believe that Bitcoin is that stable base that would basically become the foundations of a future internet. And instead of trying to wrap Bitcoin and move it to another blockchain or start a disconnected blockchain network, we believe that things would consolidate on top of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin would become effectively how TCP/IP was for the internet, that once you have a winning protocol, it becomes very hard to kind of like replace or change that protocol. So we bring the smart contract functionality to Bitcoin in a unique manner, in the sense that it's the first consensus algorithm between two blockchains. So visually, you can think of like the Stacks blockchain right next to the Bitcoin blockchain, and there's consensus algorithm running between them. And it's the first of its kind, haven't been done before, and we're super excited about it. And this has been kind of like the holy grail in crypto for a while. Like even back in the day, Vitalik tried proposing smart contracts on Bitcoin, and then went off to kind of like design Ethereum when it wasn't like technically possible to do that, or not desirable at least. And Satoshi himself actually has discussed these use cases or different types of blockchains, but his vision was that all these blockchains kind of like share the compute power of Bitcoin. And in many ways, we think that we are bringing things back full circle by fulfilling that vision through the breakthrough consensus algorithm that we have that actually uses the security of Bitcoin instead of starting disconnected networks. I think most of you would know, why Bitcoin is the most stable asset out there. It's by far the most secure blockchain. And once you have such a high hash rate or compute power, it makes little sense to start smaller networks with less hash rate. Like there are network effects here where you can just use Bitcoin, you can just build on top of it, and that makes a lot of sense. And a lot of institutional investors are more willing to hold Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin is about $300 billion worth of passive capital, right? And we are actually turning it into active capital by bringing smart contracts to it. So you can move Bitcoin from the Bitcoin chain to the Stacks chain and actually start deploying it in smart contracts. And that's a very exciting new feature. So you should think of Bitcoin as kind of like a reserve currency or digital gold, and Stacks is the fuel for smart contracts, right? But they are interrelated. They're kind of like connected to each other. Stacks tethers to Bitcoin and kind of like unlocks the passive capital that is already on Bitcoin. But more importantly, they actually grow in harmony with each other. We're not trying to compete with Bitcoin. We are effectively, in many ways, Bitcoin can potentially be more valuable because of the work that we are doing. Because the way the mining works is the Stacks miners are using Bitcoin on the Bitcoin chain to mine new blocks. So if demand for smart contracts is going up, you actually need more Bitcoin to mine, right? So it's a very healthy kind of a coexistence with Bitcoin, and instead of trying to compete with Bitcoin. If you look at the crypto markets right now, we're in this unique situation where we did a SEC qualified offering. So the US markets are currently not open to the project, only international markets are. And there are many Web3 protocols, and the markets currently are valuing them, especially if you look at the fully diluted market cap, meaning like year 2030 or so on. The markets are valuing them anywhere between $1 billion to $10 billion. And I think from the trading side, it's relatively still early innings for Stacks, where our market cap is somewhere in 220, 230 million or so right now. And in many ways, with the launch of the Stacks 2.0 mainnet, I think that's when there will likely be more kind of like trading activity, or more people would get introduced to the project, and then we are very excited about increasing project awareness and telling more people about the work that we've done. So I wouldn't go too much into the technical details of the Stacks blockchain in this presentation. I'll just give you a high-level overview, and I think we can actually spend more time on answering any of the questions you might have. So the Stacks blockchain basically it solves two problems with Bitcoin. One is scalability. Like Bitcoin is more of a settlement layer. You can't have lots of transactions on Bitcoin, but you can have thousands of transactions on the Stacks chain that are represented in a single hash on Bitcoin. So the first thing is that we try to scale out Bitcoin without modifying Bitcoin by having this blockchain right next to it. And the second thing is that we introduce a predictable smart contract language, Clarity, and enable smart contracts around Bitcoin, meaning that there can be logic that can be triggered purely on Bitcoin transactions. And you can move Bitcoin from the Bitcoin chain to the Stacks chain to deploy it in smart contracts. And these smart contracts actually have visibility into the Bitcoin state, which is a very, very unique feature, because other disconnected blockchains, they don't have visibility into Bitcoin and in the way that Clarity does on Stacks. So the project was started by computer scientists at Princeton University. We have computer scientists from Stanford, MIT, and so on. And there has been literally years and years of hardcore research that has led to Stacks 2.0. And one thing that we are very proud of is the technical expertise of our team and the rigor that went into some of the core designs and how we published these works, and really made sure that we are building solid foundations over here, because scalability and security of these systems is extremely important for building a next generation internet on top. People should look into the Clarity language. That's a big differentiator for the Stacks 2.0 blockchain. It's a predictable language, meaning that developers can actually know exactly what the contract can and cannot do even before executing it. And we really optimize for security. All the design decisions that were made in designing Clarity are optimized for security. And the connection to Bitcoin is really like the unique aspect of it, because Clarity contracts, they have direct visibility into Bitcoin itself. I wouldn't go over the consensus algorithm that much. I would just highlight one key aspect, that the Stacks holders, if they participate in consensus, they can actually earn Bitcoin directly from the consensus algorithm, which is a very unique property. If you look at traditional proof of stake networks, you are locking up your tokens and you're earning more of the same token. Over here, if you lock up Stacks and you participate in consensus, you're actually getting Bitcoin in return, which is very valuable. And we recently released an economic model where people can go and play around with different values, that if, let's say, 50% of the liquid supply is participating, and there are a certain number of miners out there, you can get something like 9 or 10% earning on the locked tokens. I'll kind of like skip over some of the content here. I want to focus more on the mainnet launch. So we have something like 400 applications on top of the network right now, but the Clarity smart contract language is going live with SAX 2.0. And with that, you'll start seeing a bunch of smart contract deployments. There are things like new types of on-chain decentralized exchanges or new types of financial products that people are already building on the testnet. And all of this will go live with the STAX 2.0 mainnet, because 1.0 was a very limited system compared to 2.0. And 2.0 is really our master design, the main blockchain that we've been working towards. And a lot more functionality goes live with STAX 2.0 compared to what's already out there. I should highlight that Stacks is the first cryptocurrency that got distributed through a SEC qualified offering in the US. I think this was a truly historic event. We figured out the regulations by working with the SEC and the regulators, and we have been working on a part 2 of that legal framework. And stay tuned for more updates there, and you should be hearing more about it shortly. Our ecosystem is growing. There are independent entities in the ecosystem. There is a nonprofit Stacks Foundation. There are community-focused entities like Freehold, Asia and mining-focused entities like Damon, and so on. And you'll be seeing more and more integrations with exchanges. This morning, we just announced that Staked.us would be a partner for STAX 2.0 mainnet launch. They will be providing services for people who want to delegate to them for earning Bitcoin and so on. So stay tuned for more updates. This ecosystem is growing very rapidly. It's not just the 400 applications built on top, but a lot of infrastructure providers, exchanges, custody providers, and so on are coming online, and we'll be making those announcements as they get ready. So some of the holders of the Stacks asset, they include people like Union Square Ventures, Y Combinator, Winklevoss Capital, Blockchain Capital, Hashkey, and so on. They would go from kind of like just holding the asset to potentially actively participating on the network by running nodes or delegating to certain services and earning Bitcoin. Right? So we have more than 300,000 Stacks holders on the network already. And STAX 2.0 is where these people go from just kind of like passively owning the asset or using it on the network to actively participating in consensus. And we're very excited about that. We'll be releasing more details and guidelines for how to run these nodes, how to participate in earning Bitcoin, and how to kind of like support the network better. The testnet is already live with more than 90% of the functionality is already there. People can mine, people can earn Bitcoin, and we are working in the public. I know that a lot of people are interested in the exact day of the mainnet launch. Our estimates remain that December 15th should be approximately the time of the launch, but we are working in the public. We're keeping everyone updated, so stay tuned for any updates here. So in summary, we love Bitcoin. We actually think that the next internet would actually get built on top of Bitcoin instead of on some disconnected network. And we are bringing those missing features like smart contracts and scalability directly to the Bitcoin ecosystem. And we truly think that this is the right approach for building on top of solid foundations and building on top of the biggest standard out there that is Bitcoin already. So stay tuned for STAX 2.0 mainnet launch, and that's when kind of like the magic starts and all of this work goes online. Thank you, and I'll look at questions now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so happy and hopeful for what you guys have created. It's amazing, and it's brilliant that you love Bitcoin, because I do too, and I know a lot of people too. So it's awesome that you're collaborating more instead of just like doing something separate. So it's really, really brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that updates, those insights. So now let's jump right into our questions. We have many questions already. So let's just do it. Are you ready, Munib? I have here. I'm going to show it in the screen. I hope you can see it.
Yep.
Awesome.
So the question is that what are the requirements for delegating the Stacks token? So what we have done is that in the Stacks 2.0 blockchain, we've baked in the delegate functionality, meaning that people can send a delegate transaction to effectively delegate to any party that they want. So this functionality would be available in the main Stacks wallet itself. And I know that there are other wallets implementations that are kind of like in the pipeline as well. So if you want to use the Stacks wallet that the Blockstack PBC team is working on, or some other wallet, you should be able to use this functionality. So the question is about how can you attract people to use Stacks or more traditional finance? I think like it all starts with Bitcoin, in the sense that Bitcoin is already a kind of like a different asset. It's a crypto asset, it's sovereign money, and a lot of people are holding it. And I think we're at the stage where people are just holding Bitcoin almost like a savings account with no earnings or yield on it. And with our launch and with smart contracts, what happens is that it becomes possible to start deploying Bitcoin in different financial products, because you have the smart contract logic. Developers can build these things, and it becomes easier to deploy Bitcoin. So in many ways, I think it's a very new market, but there's already like $300 billion of passive capital in Bitcoin. So there's a lot of opportunity to turn some of that into active capital by with smart contracts. So the question is that would it be possible to create decentralized finance or DeFi products with Bitcoin with the Stacks 2.0 chain? And the answer is definitely yes. This is something, I think it's important to kind of like look at the history of this. This is something that we've been designing since the beginning, like the 2017, when we did our first offering. That's when the initial ideas for the Clarity language started. And over the last 2 years, the language has matured a lot. We announced earlier that Algorand and their scientists from MIT, like Silvio Micali and others, they're also planning to use the language and contribute to it. So Clarity language has been in development for a while. Decentralized finance has recently started taking off in the last 6-7 months. There's a lot more interest in it, but we've been working on it for years, and it's specifically targeted towards enabling smart contracts around Bitcoin, meaning, and most of these smart contract applications are likely going to be financial products or decentralized finance. So the next question is about how many wallets is Blockstack supporting? Do we have plans for building our own wallet? So we are going through this transition phase where Blockstack PBC, the company that started the project and built the core kind of like protocols and the public infrastructure. After the launch of Stacks 2.0, we will narrow down our focus to developer tools. But there are many other entities in the ecosystem now. I mentioned, the Independent Stacks Foundation or other entities focused on various other areas. So Blockstack PBC has a wallet, and we know that there are other entities that are working on other independent versions of wallets. But in the long run, it's really an ecosystem, right? People shouldn't rely on Blockstack PBC for providing these services. We are kind of like done with building the public infrastructure and the initial software. And the decentralized ecosystem would have several players who would be providing these services. And same for wallets. Like I think it's likely that there will be multiple companies, entities were provided these wallets. Blockchain.com, for example, last year they announced support for Stacks, and a lot of users actually made accounts on Blockchain.com wallets for that as well. And we hope to see more such things. So the next question is about what security protocol we're using for security. I think it's a little bit of a generic question, so let me try to break it down more, because the devil is in the details, right? So security could be for the consensus protocol. Security could be for the design of the smart contract language. Security could be for wallets. Right, so I'll just give some brief general comments here, because I think otherwise it's just a very kind of like a broad, open-ended type of question. So for the consensus algorithm, we have computer scientists who are experts in designing consensus algorithms, and we have a very iterative approach of building these systems, testing them out. We have external firms that do audits and make sure that there aren't any kind of like consensus critical bugs in the software. And that's why we would rather focus more on quality and instead of pushing something out there that's not ready yet. In terms of smart contracts, all of the work that we have done on the design of the Clarity smart contract language basically revolves around security, right? Because people can have these proofs, like mathematical proofs for correctness or what the program can and cannot do. It's all about security. We want developers to have these tools available so that they can identify potential bugs in their code even before that contract even runs. And Clarity has also some nice features like post conditions, and we don't have a compiler because we don't even want compilers to introduce any bugs in the code and so on. So I think in terms of general security practices, like getting audits and having responsible disclosures or programs on HackerOne and so on, all of that is there. But I think it's important to understand that Clarity language is actually all about security of smart contracts, and we take that extremely seriously. So the next question is about how can we earn Bitcoin with Stacks. So that's the consensus algorithm. Just like with proof of stake, you can lock up your tokens and earn more tokens from the consensus algorithm. With Stacks 2.0, you lock up Stacks, participate in consensus, and you basically earn Bitcoin on top. And the details there are that there's a dynamic, based on participation, there's a dynamic minimum amount of stacks that are needed. So either you have that directly, or you would have to find pooling services and basically pool together with other people to meet the minimum threshold to be able to participate.
Okay, I think we have time for more questions. There's so many. I'm trying to choose the best ones here. So please bear with me. We have this one. Let's see if you can read it there.
Yep. So this question is about what programming language is Clarity based on. So it's a new programming language, so there are the design principles behind the language, what is the language optimized for? And then there is the syntax of the language, right? So the syntax of the language is inspired by Lisp. For people who are familiar with that programming language, it will feel a little bit like Lisp. The syntax looks like that, but the design principles are the key thing here, right? And I think it's a new language. The design principles are very different because we don't want this language to be Turing complete. We want it to be decidable, meaning that you can tell what this program is going to do and what are the things this program cannot do. So to have that property of being predictable or being decidable, you had to make several design choices and modifications to a traditional language to be able to do that. So it's a new language, and it's very fascinating. So the next question is about what are the main advantages of Clarity over others. I would say it's almost like night and day, because let's say you're building Solidity contracts. The reason why there is a gas estimate and not an exact amount is because you actually do not know how much gas is going to get consumed by the contract, and you do not know what exactly is this contract going to do. So there's ambiguity there. You don't know. You're kind of like hoping for the best by publishing code, but you don't really have full control over it, right? And that is extremely different from Clarity, where in Clarity, you know precisely what the gas cost is going to be, because you know the exact execution path of the code, and you know exactly what this program is going to do without running it, right? Like before running it, before any action happens. So when you're keeping hundreds of millions of dollars of worth of assets on these smart contracts, it becomes precision becomes extremely important. You want to know exactly what is going to happen, and you don't want to have any ambiguity in the computer program itself. So that's the biggest difference. Then there are other interesting things where Clarity doesn't have a compiler, meaning the source code actually gets published on the blockchain. And people say that code is law. And interestingly, they don't even know what that code is, because it's compiled, and the compiled version might have unintended sequences in there that the developer didn't even want to have. But that compiled code would be treated as law. So it's a little bit like saying the code is law, but I don't even know exactly what the law is, because it's all gibberish and it's compiled code. Whereas in Clarity, the source code is published. There is no compilation step, and everyone knows exactly what the code is supposed to do, and they can test it or formally verify it before running it. And I think that's a huge difference.
You mentioned Clarity, so I think there's a couple questions specifically about what is Clarity, what's the difference?
Yeah, so I think I already answered the formal verification part and what's published at the blockchain. I would just add on to it a little bit more that there is a very unique connection to Bitcoin when you run Clarity on the Stacks chain, because then Clarity contracts, they actually have visibility into Bitcoin, meaning that Clarity contracts know when a transaction on Bitcoin happens. A very simple example would be, let's say that I want to write a program where if some Bitcoin address gets more than $5, some logic triggers, right? So in Clarity, because Clarity has SPV proofs for Bitcoin, you can express that logic. You can make that logic trigger, which is a superpower, because Bitcoin by far is the biggest crypto asset. It's the strongest blockchain, and if you can bring computing logic or programmability directly to Bitcoin, that's a really amazing feature to have, compared to having a disconnected, separate, smaller network and trying to make that programmable.
I think you're a little quiet there. Do you get that question? What's Blockstack long-term development plan?
Yep, I saw that. So the next question is about what's Blockstack's long-term plan. I think it's a very, very, very interesting question. Blockstack was started as a long-term project. To give you a little bit of a history, the project started at the computer science department at Princeton University in 2013. Right, so we've already been around for a while, and all of the early investors that backed the project, like Y Combinator or Union Square Ventures or Naval Ravikant, they were all of the mindset that this is a 10+ year project. We are building fundamental technology. We plan to do, research and development for several years before building the public infrastructure and so on. So I think if you just look at the project history and some of the backers of the project, some of the top funds in Silicon Valley or some of the top investors out there, they've been backing the project, which we are very grateful for. And they've all been backing it for the long term, right? This is not any short-term, DeFi food coin that appeared out of nowhere and is going to disappear, right? The project has been around for a while, and the long-term roadmap is basically follows the same principles, right? Like, we went through a very thoughtful, compliance and regulations approach. The part one was the SEC qualified offering. Part two of that is effectively a legal framework that you should stay tuned about. And we transitioned from a single company to an ecosystem, right? So there's no single company on which people need to rely on, and it's truly becoming an ecosystem. And in that ecosystem, the long-term plan of this ecosystem is really to be the place where these decentralized applications can be built, like truly high-quality applications that can scale out to hundreds of millions of users. Same with Clarity, the amount of thought that went into the design of Clarity. We don't want developers to write, buggy code and then have millions of dollars kind of like lost from these smart contracts. So we are giving developers all the tools. So you can actually dissect the project and see what type of decisions we have made at any given point in time, be it about the technology, be it about regulations, and we always take the harder path, but the right path. And we usually always optimize for long term. And I think it's a very unique thing actually in the crypto ecosystem where there's a lot of short-term thinking. And I think Blockstack is pretty much like stands out as a very long-term thinking project.
All right, this will be our last question.
So the next question is about POX mining and the difference between 1.0 and 2.0. So I think Stacks 1.0 compared to Stacks 2.0 is a very almost like a limited blockchain. We pushed it live because we wanted developers to kind of like start using the functionality that's available, but it doesn't have smart contracts. It does not have this POX consensus algorithm between the two chains. It does not have Bitcoin earnings and rewards. It's like Stacks 2.0, I would say, is a 10x or 100x better system. And you should just kind of like focus on what 2.0 does. It's really our master design. And in terms of POX consensus, like that goes live with mainnet. It's already available on testnet. And as I mentioned earlier, that we are targeting December 15th as the estimated launch, and we'll keep everyone updated as progress happens.
All right, so that went a little bit fast. Let me know, Munib, if you're comfortable with taking a little bit more questions. There's very interesting questions in the chat. People, I'm so thankful they are asking all kinds of things. So let me know if you want to take maybe 3 more questions.
Sure, happy to.
Okay.
Right, so the next question is about Clarity and Solidity Ethereum contracts. I think this came up a couple of times before as well, but let me kind of like answer it in a different way and highlight some other features of Clarity. So think about that the programming language is almost like it can expose a certain attack surface, not just for any smart contract, any specific smart contract, but for all smart contracts, because the language is what people are using to program these things, right? So Solidity in general has a very broad type of a attack surface. Like there are many things that developers that they don't even realize can happen, but they could be there as security loopholes, right? Clarity is a much tighter language, right? It's much more predictable. In some ways, it's more restrictive. It is a more precise tool for developers so that when they're programming in Clarity, what they produced is less error prone. Obviously, there are no guarantees that there are no bugs in programs that people are writing. But what happens with Clarity is that it gives you the tools to then go and automatically audit your code, right? Instead of like manually auditing it, you can have a formal verification. You can actually check that is the code doing what you wanted it to do, right? And that's very hard to do with JavaScript like languages or Turing complete like languages like Solidity. So that's a huge difference. One language is almost optimized for having a much smaller attack surface and a much more precise kind of like description of your programs and that you can verify even before running them.
So we have that Coin Travolta question. What's the main difference between Stacker and Miner?
Yep. So I think in traditional proof of stake protocols, there's just one type of a node, like you're just staking. So you're putting up your tokens as a almost like a collateral because you can get slashed for misbehavior, and you are earning more of the same tokens from consensus. POX is very different, right? It actually has some benefits of proof of work, and it has some benefits of proof of stake. So in POX, first of all, miners and stackers are different. So there are two types of actors, not just a single type of actors. The miners have visibility into both the Bitcoin chain and the Stacks chain. And the miners are trying to get selected as a leader by participating in consensus on the Bitcoin chain, right? So they're bidding Bitcoin, meaning that they are participating by expressing their cost of mining in Bitcoin. And there's a verifiable random function with some probability that you can get selected as a leader. And if you get selected as a leader, you get the newly minted STX tokens, you get any Clarity fees. So you're effectively, participating in consensus just as a Bitcoin miner, is calculating hashes with some probability that they would get the rewards, right? So that's how mining works. And the miners are writing new blocks on the Stacks chain because there are two chains that have the consensus algorithm, and they have visibility on both. And the miners are the ones who process the smart contracts, the Clarity smart contracts, and they collect the fees. They collect all the transaction fees on the Stacks chain as well. The stackers, they run full nodes, and they periodically broadcast network information on the network, which is useful, and they lock up their STX to receive the mining rewards. So the miners are kind of like spending Bitcoin. Stackers are receiving Bitcoin, right? So there's, depending on who's participating, because not everyone is going to participate. People who are actively participating and running these nodes and helping the network, they get the Bitcoin rewards, right? And that there's a very interesting interplay between two crypto assets natively on chain. So Stacks cryptocurrency is getting a native price pair with Bitcoin that is determined by mining interest. So the miners are the ones that are bidding for the newly minted Stacks and sending their Bitcoins to the reward addresses, which belong to Stacks holders.
Thank you so much for that explanation. I saw a question which is very interesting to me. What really motivated you to bring such a great project into existence? And I think we can close with that one.
Thanks. Thanks a lot. So I think in terms of my motivation, I'm a computer scientist. I've been working on next generation internet protocols for even before the crypto industry was there, right? So we were involved with certain, clean slate internet architecture projects, meaning that we wanted to kind of like upgrade the internet. And basically, we all know that the core internet infrastructure is not as secure and not as user centered or user owned as possible, right? The internet has certain flaws, and even the founding fathers of the internet, like Sir Tim Berners-Lee, David Clark, who was the chief protocol architect of the internet, they all agree with the shortcomings of the internet. So my PhD thesis actually extends David Clark's work. So he was the chief protocol architect of the internet, and fixes some of those fundamental design flaws of the internet, which I think is a profound kind of like work to do, just given how many lives the internet actually touches and how many lives we can improve if we improve the core internet itself and have a better version of it. The crypto industry and blockchains, I discovered them in 2013, are the perfect way of doing that. It was the missing technology. It was the technology that can actually enable some of those ideas to get adopted, to get deployed, to be secure, and so on. So I think discovering the crypto industry was like one of the best moments of my life, where the kind of problems that we've been trying to solve in maybe clunkier ways actually saw a very elegant path forward, not just from a technology perspective, but from galvanizing a community around it, like giving people ownership, like a financial stake in the early success of the ecosystem, and really building a movement around this. And I think that's only possible because of crypto.
All right, thank you so much, Munib, for sharing that. I'm just going to remind everyone that we have the Twitter storm, and this is my favorite part. Well, you share what you learn, more questions, more insights to Munib and to the Blockstack team. If there's anything that we didn't answer, please go there to their Twitter, Blockstack at Twitter. Also, we will be selecting the 40 best tweets with your questions and everything, and they will be split in a pool, like $1,000 worth of Stacks token. So if Munib didn't answer your question here, you have another chance on Twitter. So go there and communicate with their community. Also, please note, to win any of these prizes, you will need to have a Binance.com user account and your user ID to claim your prizes. And the team is going to be sharing a form where you can submit your tweet, you can submit your information, so we can send you the Stacks token. Don't forget to submit this information. Munib, anything else that you may want to share with the audience that we didn't cover? Any final words?
Well, thanks so much for hosting me. I think this was great. Thanks for all the great questions. I know that this sometimes might seem like a lot. It's because it's years and years of work, and it's all going live with the Stacks 2.0 mainnet. So I encourage you to go and check out like what exactly is going live with the mainnet. How is this different from all these other crypto projects out there? We are believers in Bitcoin. We are bringing core functionality like smart contracts and scalability to the Bitcoin ecosystem, and really enabling innovation in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And on top of this, you can actually earn Bitcoin by participating in consensus and supporting the network. So do check out the mainnet launch. That is by far the biggest thing we've ever done as a project, and we're really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. And you mentioned that the launch is going to be December 15th.
That's the current estimate, correct.
Okay, right in time for the holidays, so we'll be waiting for that. Well, thank you, friends, for joining. Thank you for watching. This is all for now. We hope you have some fun and that you enjoy it. Munib, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Team, Luis, Joe, Gajender of Binance Angel, thank you so much for helping. Let's connect everybody on our Telegram accounts, Twitter. We hope to see you around, and thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And I'm at Munib on Twitter. If you have any questions, feel free to tag me. Thanks a lot.